Memories of Murder, 2003 film directed by Bong Joon-ho, who of course went on to win the historic Oscar for Parasite. This film is a thriller based on a real-life story of a serial killer, of serial murders of women that occurred in Korea, in rural Korea in the late 1980s. What's really interesting is that the case was still unsolved as of 2003, and only in 2019 they found the actual killer from all those years before. So what the film does is it doesn't really feature a concrete resolution. It follows a group of policemen, most of them locals, with one inspector arriving from Seoul, trying to solve the case, and pretty much murder after murder having another suspect in mind who they are now convinced that this is the correct one. And you know, in many ways it's like a Greek tragedy where every time they seem to be at the cusp of a revelation, of a breakthrough, something happens to prevent them from achieving it, or they come to realize that the suspect they have is wrong. Like, almost like the gods themselves didn't want them to resolve the case. It's a really solid film, though, because it commits to this idea, to this type of narrative. And it also features a group of very distinct and well-drawn characters who each of them sort of have an arc of their own. It's very well shot, with the cinematography that cleverly mixes steady wide shots with dynamic camera movements during scenes like foot chases or the murder sequences. It really draws you in. There are also some kind of interesting music choices in the film, which come off as unconventional a bit, but work quite well. And I also want to mention the ending. I really enjoyed bookending the film with similar sequences of Detective Park. And that look he gives to the camera at the very end is brilliant because, you know, we know the context of it from earlier in the film, and Bong Joon-ho himself stated that this was his idea of communicating with the real killer. He knew that if the murderer was still alive in 2003, he would watch the film and he would know that this was a message for him, which is at the same time chilling and brilliant. And of course, the director was 100% correct, because the killer did admit to watching the movie when it first came out. So yeah, Memories of Murder, very good thriller, and yet another example of quality Korean cinema.